The band Nelson would be made up of twin brothers Matthew and Gunnar. While the pair would surface on everyone's radar in 1990 with their record After the Rain, they were one of the last so-called hair acts that would take off before the whole scene came crashing down. Record label infighting, image, and credibility problems hampered the band, as well as changing musical trends that resulted in the group spending years in the studio without new music. Today, let's explore whatever happened to the band Nelson. The Nelson brothers would be born to parents Christy and Ricky Nelson, who were in show business. Their father, with whom the brothers had a close bond with, was an accomplished musician, and their show business roots ran deeper than just their parents. Their grandparents were Ozzie and Harriet. Their aunt would be Pam Dauber, who was from the show Mork and Mindy, while their uncle is Mark Harmon from NCIS. The brothers would be born in 1967 in Hollywood, with Gunnar Nelson recalling in the book Nothing But a Good Time. We were there at the very epicenter of the birth of country rock when our dad Ricky put together the Stone Canyon Band. At the Troubadour any night, you could see Linda Ronstadt's first band, Jackson Browne, Buffalo Springfield, all that kind of stuff. That's what Matt and I grew up watching our father doing. Given their deep connection to Hollywood, it wasn't surprising that the brothers went down the same path. The Nelsons started playing their instruments at the age of 6, did their first recording session at age 11, and played their first club shows in LA starting at age 12 under the moniker Strange Agent with another friend from school, guitarist Joey Cathcart. Gunnar would play drums while Matthew would play bass and front the band, not soloing themselves to any one particular genre of music. Matthew Nelson would admit in the same book that the brothers were friends with punk rockers, new wavers, and rockabillys. The band would cut their chops playing 5 nights a week around LA, sharing the stage with acts including the Plimsolls and the Go-Go's, but being a decade and a half younger than their counterparts who played the same club shows also exposed the brothers to the ugly side of fame and made little time to form friendships, with Matthew recalling in the same book, "They were the scariest mother effers I've ever seen. I mean, far scarier than any punkers or rivet heads, metal guys. These were scary people that sang really happy songs, but they were all heroin addicts. They would do stuff like sabotage your gear before a show, cut your power cable, or kick your amps to where they would blow a tube." By the middle of the 80s, the band would rename themselves the Nelsons. Their father Ricky would die in a horrific plane crash in 1985 on New Year's Eve. His sons at the time were now 18, and the loss proved to be devastating to them. What made the loss hurt even more was at the time the brothers were supposed to join their father on the same plane to a gig in Texas, but their father called them up at the last minute and suggested they fly commercial, something they didn't want to do, so they opted to stay home. Adding insult to injury was that the brothers found out about their father's death through the radio. It was a local rock station who was playing their father's music, something they found strange until the DJ announced their dad's passing. The brothers' relationship with their mother was in sharp contrast. When their father died, he left his family with $4 million in debt. Their mother did little to nurture her son's musical dreams, also hitting the bottle pretty heavy, with the brothers also telling Yahoo that their mother was a narcissist. Their mother went as far as to, when the boys turned 18, to write them a letter, letting them know that they were delusional for trying to become musicians, with Matthew telling Yahoo, "Our mother made it very difficult for us to play music. She said we always reminded her of Rick, and the business was horrible, and it was going to take you down." The brothers soon found themselves on their own, living at friends' homes, while also trying to nab a record deal. But in 1986, the band caught their big break thanks to one of their managers who had an in with Saturday Night Live. Still going by the moniker the Nelsons, they would appear as a musical guest alongside host Ronald Reagan Jr. It would prove to be one for the history books, as the Nelsons became the first unsigned band in history to perform on the show. However, it was following the appearance that the band underwent a major change. Gunnar, who played drums up until this point, had an epiphany after the appearance, recalling to Pop Dose how he went to his brother on the plane ride home, saying, "Listen, we're breaking up the band, we're doing things differently," and he thought I was just on glue. I said, "Listen, I saw it in my head. In order for us to be what I think we can be, we both need to be up front. We both need to be singing together. I love playing drums, but that's not my role. I don't want to be back there." And Matt was like, "Listen, you've never played guitar ever in your life, ever. Things are happening for us. You're crazy. This is total sabotage." The epiphany seemed to work, as Gunnar was able to learn the guitar within a year. Gunnar would recall in the book Nothing But a Good Time, "I wanted to combine the country rock vocalizing that I grew up with and the majesty and power of the guitar rock that I heard in bands like the Scorpions, Dokken, and Boston. The band up until this point was smart in hiring managers who were forthcoming and pointed out their clients' shortcomings. Gunnar would tell the LA Times, "The first meeting, I didn't like them very much. They said, 'We think your songs suck.' After we calmed down, we realized we weren't getting much record company attention, and that was the reason." Looking to improve their chances of landing a deal, they met up with an artist named Mark Tanner, who started co-writing songs with him. They also got some help from other musicians, with Matthew Nelson revealing in the same book, "We had some notable guys playing with us like Vivian Campbell before he joined Whitesnake, and a great drummer named Andy Parker who played for UFO. But a lot of players also just saw us as a meal ticket." The band would take their demos to labels on both the East and West Coast and were turned down by virtually everyone. They would soon start targeting Geffen A&R man John Kalodner. The brothers would make friends with secretaries at the Geffen Records office, and Kalodner was known for dressing in white suits. According to Gunnar, sometimes the A&R man was known for wearing black suits if he was having a horrible day, so he would call the office ahead of time and find out what colored suit Kalodner was wearing that day before approaching him. According to Gunnar, the band specifically targeted Kalodner since he was having a string of hit records in the 80s, including working with Aerosmith, Whitesnake, Cher, and Peter Gabriel. Eventually, the A&R man signed the band to a development deal and met with them almost weekly, going through the repertoire of songs to form their first album. Kalodner, like the group's management, was blunt about what he liked and what he didn't, but he didn't really offer much in the way of details, with Gunnar recalling in the same book, "Okay, here's your typical John Kalodner criticism. I effing hate it. John, what do you hate about it? You're the effing musician, not me. You figure it out." Despite spending a year with Kalodner working on songs, they hadn't seen a penny yet, and they were running low on funds. After about a year of working with the A&R man, they walked into his office one day without an appointment, and with a new song they had co-written with Tanner called Love and Affection. Gunnar would recall in the same book, "When it was done, there was silence for 30 seconds. Then he just reached over and called business affairs and said, 'Send the check for the Nelsons, they're ready.' Then he got off the phone and goes, 'I've been waiting for you guys to do something like that, for you to not to listen to anybody, because when you guys release this, everybody in the world is going to want to tear you down, and I felt like if you don't have the balls to come in here and stand up to me, you certainly weren't going to have the balls to go and stand up to anybody else.'" Love and Affection would be inspired by model Cindy Crawford, with Gunnar recalling to Louder Sound. Matthew wrote the riff in a kind of trance, playing an acoustic guitar, staring at Vogue magazine with Cindy Crawford on the cover. After the record popped, Matthew and Cindy became good friends. When I told her the song was about her, she said, "What do you want, a medal?" I said, "No, a plaque." 5 months before the band's debut album was set to be released, they were already on the road promoting it. But what didn't help was the Milli Vanilli lip sync scandal. By this point, the band had shortened their name to simply Nelson, and the scandal seemed to hit the band, who decided to dispel any rumors about the group, going on radio stations across America with acoustic guitars and singing their own songs, proving they were the real deal. Even before the record came out, the band had already made $2 million, thanks to publishing and merchandising deals their manager Larry Mazer had made. Not only that, but Mazer landed the band a spot on the MTV program Dial MTV as guest DJs, and between joking around with each other, they also performed their songs acoustically. Coming out in 1990, the reaction was instantaneous. Geffen would sell out of the group's first pressing of their debut album, which was about 50,000 copies in just 2 weeks. The video for the band's hit single Love and Affection would force the group to play the song backwards because the tape would be rewound and Fake Snow would be going upwards instead of downwards. The song would eventually hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 charts, but despite that achievement, no one seemed to want to take the band out on the road with them, especially the hair metal bands. Those close to the band claimed it was an image and credibility problem. Nelson weren't taken seriously, or they were simply too polarizing, with Gunnar recalling in Nothing But a Good Time, "We had very strong images. I can't say that we didn't. There's a little bit of, I guess you call it glam element, but we never wore makeup and had big hair. And where everybody else was kind of black leather and all that kind of stuff, we made a counterstatement with our fashion. It was color, it was different, and we got a lot of shit for that. But the truth is we really wanted people to pay attention. The whole thing was love us or hate us, here we are polarized and it worked." The band would find their colorful look by simply going overseas to Europe. Even the group's manager, who up until this point was instrumental in negotiating deals for the group, revealed in the same book, for whatever reason, none of the hair bands would take them. They thought they had a credibility issue because of the pop thing, with that video with the long coats and the long blonde hair and the twins. Not to mention the brothers were referred to in the press as the Timode twins, named after the British shampoo. The band was now left with two options: either don't tour, or they have to finance their own tour, as their label Geffen wasn't going to be putting up the money. The band ended up booking their own headlining tour, but initial ticket sales were slow. The band filmed a second video for their title track that showed them more in a live setting, while still maintaining somewhat of a concept being shot at the old LA Zoo. The impact of the video was immediate and gave the band's tour a shot in the arm it needed, as they soon sold out most of their live shows. Joining them on tour would be a new group called Enough's Enough. Gunnar would tell the LA Times in 1991, "I just feel validated. We've got a core audience now, we proved it's for real, and we're not going to go away. We've already got 6 songs written for the second album. It'll be more in depth, written from a more personal standpoint." And that was something a lot of the press picked up on when the band hit it big. Some claim their success was due to nepotism, while the brothers tried to distance themselves from their father's career, not covering any of his songs during live shows, while also learning the lessons of his career, with Gunnar telling the Times, "I experienced my father's career being a roller coaster ride, and I know what I didn't want my career to be. I don't want to be 43 years old and playing because I have to." He loved to play, which is the basis for any musician, but he admitted he was horribly managed. By the end, he was playing because he had to, not because he wanted to. It got ridiculous after a point. He was just out all the time, and he still wasn't paying the bills. You've got to think through things ahead of time. Just by learning from example, we've surrounded ourselves with really good management people. We're on top of it business-wise, and music is fun. It was during their own headlining tour that the band members indulged in hedonistic behavior, with Gunnar recalling to Louder Sound, "I was in a relationship with a great girl. We were thinking about getting married, but the realities of being on tour kind of interfered with that. I was a dog again for a while. Remember, this was a time before cell phones and Instagram and getting busted, so I had total culpable deniability. I highly recommend it. It was great going on a hedonistic, decadent tour when I was 22. I look back on that and I'm just happy to be alive." As the band came off their own successful headlining tour, they would find themselves opening for Cinderella and touring alongside Lynch Mob. But unfortunately for the band, it wasn't a good tour. The headliners, as well as George Lynch and the crowds, showed the band little to no respect. Nelson quickly went from playing audiences full of adoring females to mostly men who detested them. Matthew would recall in the book Nothing But a Good Time, George Lynch walked up to me on day one, and me doing the whole, "Hey, I'm a huge fan of you, George." He said, "F you, I'm not getting tour support because you mother effers are on the tour," and then he walked away. The Morning Call newspaper reviewed one of their shows on the tour in May of 1991, writing, and I quote, "Songs such as Love and Affection and After the Rain drove the youngest members of the crowd into a frenzy, even as a good portion of the half-filled arena was lulled to sleep." The constant touring and friction with the other bands and crowds also led to health issues for Gunnar, who was suffering from emotional and vocal issues, with his brother recalling in Nothing But a Good Time. It turned out his voice doctor put him on some pills to help with his throat, which happened to be uppers, and I remember I had to literally pull him off the ledge because he wanted to jump out of a hotel window when we were on tour. He was so freaked out, he said, "I can't take it anymore." He was just fried out. By the later part of 1991, the band was now off the road and focusing on their second album, Imaginator. The band's new record would take aim at the media landscape and how the press could either make or break you. It was a much darker album, and that scared their label Geffen. Geffen hated the record so much, with Gunnar telling Rock Pit, "We were feeling pretty angry that the agenda of the label had changed and they were aggressive towards us for no reason, and we just felt they were turning their backs on us." Their label wasn't sure what to do with the band, and with John Calendar still in the company, he was more preoccupied with Aerosmith. The band opted to stay and work with the label, something they now admit was a mistake. With Gunnar adding to Rock Pit, the bottom line was we probably would have been better served going to another label at the time, another place that was still making rock. It was not in their interest to let us go and have success elsewhere, so they kept us in the studio forever. We were stuck in the studio for 3, 4, 5 years. By the time we came out with what to the fans was a second record, because they can, our fans had moved on. Released in 1995, their sophomore album would fall flat, and not helping was the lack of promotion from Geffen. The same radio stations that had initially championed the band soon closed their doors to the group. The band soon afterwards left Geffen and released their rejected second record, Imaginator, in 1996 as their third album through an indie label. The band soon formed their own label, Stone Canyon Records, as a tribute to their father, releasing their own records independently. By the early to mid-90s, a huge shift in music happened, with alternative rock displacing 80s hair metal acts, with Gunnar telling louder sound. It was the single largest paradigm shift in music history, and that includes the death of disco. Suddenly, everyone was wearing flannel, and we had no idea what was going on. I think all of us from that confidence rock era were victims of what happened. Everyone was living on a prayer. Then with grunge, the whole attitude changed to life sucks and everyone owes me. That's not how we felt. We had chicks coming to our shows in lingerie, just lingerie. It was awesome. His brother Matthew would remember in the book Nothing But a Good Time. I remember reading that article in Rolling Stone where Kurt Cobain says, they asked him what it's like being on the same label as Nelson, and he said, "We burn effigies of them at every show." The band would release a string of albums on their own label, and in 2000 they paid tribute to their father Rick Nelson with a live record, Like Father, Like Sons. In 2006, Gunnar would appear as a contestant on Celebrity Fit Club on VH1. In 2010, the band signed a deal with Frontier Records, putting out their album, which was a throwback to their first record, Lightning Strikes Twice. Sadly, in 2011, longtime guitarist Joey Cathcart would pass away due to brain cancer, and the band would release their last record of original material in 2015 with Peace Out. In addition to touring as Nelson, the twin singer-songwriters since 1999 have also formed a tribute act to their father called Ricky Nelson Remembered. Their brothers also play in a supergroup with other 80s era hair bands called Scrap Metal. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and we'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.